please don't skip this video. If these words touch your heart, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. By doing so, you're helping spread the word of Jesus and reach someone who is waiting for hope today. Stay with us until the end. God may have a special message, a blessing, or an answer to your prayers just for you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. May God bless you abundantly, fill your life with His peace, and answer the desires of your heart. Amen.
So let's talk about a story where everything that could go right eventually goes horribly wrong. We're diving into the biblical books of Kings, and trust me, it's a wild ride, full of power, faith, and some seriously flawed leaders. It's a story that kicks off at the absolute peak of glory and ends in a total train wreck.
And that really brings us to the biggest question of all, the one that just hangs over this entire story. How? I mean, how could a nation that had everything going for it fall so far? Well, that's exactly what the books of 1st and 2nd Kings are trying to answer. They're basically a post-mortem, an explanation for why their entire world just fell apart.
Now, to really get this, you have to understand that the books of Kings aren't your typical history textbook. You could call them spiritual history. See, the writers here, they aren't grading the kings on, say, GDP or how many battles they won. Nope. Every single leader gets judged by just one thing. Were you faithful to God, or did you lead everyone astray into idolatry? In this story, that's the only report card that matters. Period. All right, so let's start at the beginning, and I mean the absolute top, with a kingdom at the very height of its power and glory. This is the time of King Solomon. You know the story, right? God basically offers him a blank check, anything he wants, and he asks for wisdom. And boy, does he get it, along with just unimaginable wealth and power. This kicks off Israel's golden age. And the crown jewel of it all? The magnificent temple in Jerusalem. I mean, this was a breathtaking, physical symbol that God was right there with his people. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This is where the cracks start to show. For all his legendary wisdom, Solomon starts to compromise. He makes a ton of political marriages, and through them, the worship of all these foreign gods just floods into the nation. And listen, this is the key point. This wasn't just some private, personal mistake. Oh no, this was a full-blown national crisis brewing. And it gets so bad that God gives him a direct warning. The kingdom is going to be ripped in two. Solomon's story really sets up this pattern, this four-step cycle that you're going to see again and again and again throughout the books of Kings. Okay, so first you have obedience and things are good, blessing. Then comes step 2, compromise and idolatry creep in. Step 3, God sends a prophet to sound the alarm, a big warning. And finally, step 4, if nobody listens, judgment comes crashing down. Though, you'll see there's often this little glimmer of mercy mixed in. Seriously, keep this cycle in your head. It's the key to unlocking the whole story. So just like God warned, the fallout from Solomon's choices hits fast and hard right after he dies. The nation splits, and now we have two kingdoms heading down two different paths. But, spoiler alert, they're both headed for the same disastrous end. So Solomon's son Rehoboam takes over, and instead of, easing up, he stupidly decides to be even tougher than his dad. For the 10 northern tribes, that's it. They've had enough. It's the final straw. They revolt, they break away, and the unified kingdom is shattered for good. So this split gives us two brand new nations, and they're on totally different tracks. Up north, you've got the kingdom of Israel. It's politically a mess, no stable royal family, and right out of the gate, its very first king sets up idol worship as the foundation. I mean, it's a foundational sin that's going to curse them right to the very end. Then you've got the southern kingdom, Judah. It's still ruled by David's family line, and they still have the temple. Its slide into chaos is going to be a lot slower, but yeah, the rot has already set in. Okay, so as the kings get more and more corrupt, especially in the north, a whole new thing starts happening. God raises up these incredible, powerful figures to speak truth directly to power. And this sets the stage for a truly epic showdown. And the crisis in the north hits rock bottom with King Ahab and his infamous wife Jezebel. I mean, these two are like the supervillains of the story. Under them, worshiping the false god Baal isn't just okay, it becomes the official state religion. They literally hunt down and try to kill anyone who's still faithful to the real God, dragging the whole nation into this deep spiritual darkness. So how does God respond to this mess? He sends in a man as wild and fiery as the wilderness he came from, the prophet Elijah. This guy was an absolute force of nature. He was sent to pretty much single-handedly take on this corrupt monarchy and basically shake the entire nation back to its senses. And this all leads to one of the most jaw-dropping scenes in the entire Bible, the showdown on Mount Carmel. You've got Elijah on one side and 450 prophets of Baal on the other. Elijah challenges them to a contest. Call down fire from your God. They pray, they shout, they dance, and nothing. Crickets. Then Elijah calls on the God of Israel, and bam! Fire instantly falls from heaven and just incinerates the entire offering. The people see it, and their reaction says it all. The Lord, He is God. You just can't argue with that kind of power.
So after Elijah is taken up to heaven in this crazy whirlwind, his apprentice, Elisha, takes over. But his ministry has a really different vibe. If Elijah was all about fire and confrontation, Elisha is more about mercy, healing, and putting things back together. It's a really cool reminder that God's power isn't just for judgment. It's also for compassion and life.
But, even with these incredible prophets, it just isn't enough to turn the ship around. Both kingdoms keep heading down that same self-destructive path. And eventually, that final step in the cycle, judgment, well, it becomes unavoidable.
And the end comes in two brutal stages. First up, in 722 BC, the northern kingdom of Israel, which, by the way, never had a single good king, gets completely wiped out by the Assyrian Empire. Its people are hauled off and scattered. Then, a little over 100 years later, in 586 BC, it's Judah's turn. Despite having a few good moments, they meet the exact same fate at the hands of the Babylonians.
And for Judah, this was just total devastation. Jerusalem was ransacked. Solomon's incredible temple, the very symbol of God's presence, was burned to the ground, and the people were forced to march into exile. I mean, every single warning the prophets had shouted for centuries had finally come true. The loss was just absolute.
So after all that, this epic, tragic story, what are we supposed to take away from it all? Well, first, there's a really clear principle. Obedience leads to life, and disobedience leads to ruin. Simple as that. We also see that God is incredibly patient. He sends warning after warning, but his judgment is very real. We see just how crucial the prophets were, acting like the nation's conscience, always speaking truth to power, no matter how dangerous it was. But maybe the biggest lesson of all is this. The spiritual health of a nation's leaders really does shape its destiny.
And that leaves us with one last really important thought. After you watch king after king after king just fail, compromise, and lead the people in the wrong direction, this whole story leaves you with this deep, deep longing. You start wishing for a different kind of king, right? One who would actually be perfect, who would be totally faithful, and who would never, ever let his people down. And in that sense, this huge story of failure isn't really just an ending. It's a setup. It's pointing forward, creating a space for a future perfect